handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men power want? More power.
And now, broadcasting live from deep within the borders of occupied liberal territory known as California, Luca Zanna with Love, Guns, and Freedom.
All systems go.
Don't tread on us. We're not afraid. You work for us. We're not your slaves. Don't tread on us. You cross the line. Soon you will pay for all your crimes. After a long train of abuse.
Hello guys, this is Luca Zanna. You're listening to Love, Guns and Freedom on K-Talks 1340 AM. I'm an Italian by birth, an American by choice, and an Arizonan by gift of God. Just to let you know, as I already told you many times, I'm not here to entertain. You can find better choices for that, but my goal is to engage each other, try to search for the truth with a final goal to regain our lost liberty and natural rights. I want just to say something because I've been listening lately about some phone calls and people that they support me, somebody else maybe doesn't support me. First of all, I don't want to change this country. My goal, I would like to, in my dreams, to bring it back the way it used to be, a constitutional republic. If some of you believe that I am some sort of an anarchist, anti-government, I'm sorry to inform you that you are really wrong. I am just anti-tyranny. I would like to support my government. And more important, when somebody say, hey, you gotta go back to Italy if you don't like it here, I have two words for you: too bad. I already gave up my Italian citizenship when I took the oath to become an American and to defend this republic against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And on top, because I thought it was something for me symbolically to do, in 2005, I also burned my Italian passport. So you're stuck with me. Sorry to tell you that. I also believe that we can agree to disagree. We become respectful to each other. But when you start to decide that you can steal my individual rights or the fruit of my labor using the force of the government, I have a message that unfortunately I cannot share on the air, but you can get it. All right, today is a special guest from Bullhead City. I'm really honored to have my first guest, and I really want to thank her for their time. Today is Sunday. I'm sure she had a lot of beautiful things to do with her family. Mohave County Supervisor, District 2, Hildy Angius. We will talk together about the federal intrusion on our state and county land with property rights. Hi, Hildy, Supervisor.
Hi, Luca. Thanks for having me. I'm your first guest, huh?
My first official guest, and I'm very happy because I didn't choose you by accident. I know that, first of all, you're really active since you became a supervisor in really fighting hard, and I really want to give you credit for that, for the basic rights that we got back partially on our county property, starting from, remember the promise that you had during the election, the dress code, and call to the public, and be able to defend ourselves and still have a Second Amendment on county. So I wanted to commend you and thank you for that. But also, I heard that you and also the other supervisor, most of them in different way, you're really leading the way in trying to get back some of our rights when it comes down to state land and county against the federal intrusion of the federal government. So please tell me about you. You have the floor. You can say pretty much whatever you want. First of all, introduce yourself. How has been your first experience as supervisor? Challenges?
Okay. Well, I'm going on 10 months now as county supervisor. It's been an incredibly busy 10 months. As you said in the beginning, when we first came into office, we had a lot of campaign promises that we said that we would take care of, and we were able to do it, and I have to tell you, in kind of record time. And what I learned, and somebody said that actually the now county manager said to me, when I forget which one it was, and one of the things I promised to do that we had fought so bitterly about during the campaign, and when I said, I want to do this, or whatever it was, and he said, okay, And I said, just as easy as that. And he said, you have to understand that in government, when something doesn't happen, it's because somebody doesn't want it to happen. Anything is possible. And you're in charge. And I'm so glad that I believe we have a board who understands that, that this county is led by a board of supervisors. It's not led by a strong county manager or a staff, that it is the board as a whole who makes policy and carries it through. So I believe that it's taken us a little time for the county to adjust that, but we are now, that's how we're run. Now, as far as the things that we did as a county and for the county, I was glad to do it. And I was talking to Luca a little before, and I just want to back up a little because I'm their first guest and this is your fourth show. And I credit Luca Zanna and the late Jim Canellis for my being here. And why is that? When I first came to Bullhead City 7 years ago, and I can't believe it's only 8 years ago, but when I really got involved with the community and with the Republican Party was only about 7 years ago when I think about it. And I was a party person, and I, gung-ho, and, that was what I did. I was a Republican. And when I first heard about Luca, it was, not very positive. You're a troublemaker, and, I remember I was putting on this event for Dean Martin, who was the treasurer who was running, and you came in your truck, and all I could, it didn't even matter why. All I could see was that you were, screwing up my event. But that was probably the first time I spoke to you, and you were so polite and gracious, and you did what I asked you to do. You parked on, and that's when I realized that, I really have to start looking into myself, what's going on in this county. And that's what I started doing. I started asking questions and talking to people, and then you had the recall. And, the previous supervisor, Tom Sockwell, was my friend. But then when I started doing things, I can't say he wasn't still my friend, but I did not agree with what was going on. And, we can go into history, but fast forward, I was like, and also Jim Canellis for that simple act of
civil
disobedience of keeping his hat on.
Yes.
And it seemed like such a small thing, but that's what starts a movement.
Exactly.
And for us it was a small movement, but now it looks like it's escalating into an even bigger movement. And I'll tell you why. So now that we got through all of the sort of the smaller things with the county that were relatively easy to do because again, we're in charge. But what I was surprised, and what people I think are going to be surprised to hear, is how much the county has to, we're always sort of in contention and in sort of a fight with the federal government. And I wasn't expecting that at all. And what I've learned in my short time here, and I am very confident in making this statement, is that there is a war on the West by our federal government, and it comes in the form of the EPA. It comes in the form of the Endangered Species Act. Weekly, sometimes daily, I'm notified about land being taken from us. This, a few weeks ago, they took 10,000 acres of our land for a weed. They called it a flower. It's a weed. And they made it endangered, and because they made it endangered, they took our land. And by the time, unless you're reading the Federal Registry for fun, and there are people who do that, by the time you learn about all these things that you're just inundated with every day, it's too late because the government has a process they go through that entails public hearings and, public input. But you have to play by their rules. And if you don't do it by their rules, it's too bad. They'll just come and they'll do it. So we're just now starting to learn the process, and what's got us really going on this is the wolves, and you might have heard about that. Now, the state of Arizona is now going to be populated by wolves, and years ago they decided they killed all the wolves. Remember, they killed all the wolves.
Yes.
The government. They did it, and then they went, oopsie, we made a mistake. We need to bring them back for the ecosystem and whatever. But, as you really read the history, it gets more devious and dark than just putting them in.
If I can say one thing to interact with you. Yes, there is some sort of an attack on the Southwest, but it is not Southwest because, in my opinion, it is the last frontier where there are still people that have a free space, or at least a different lifestyle that normally in the people living in big cities, they almost forgot exist. We still have some basic rights. We still have some sense of freedom, at least something that I tell you, I've been looking around the world. I would never find what I can find here, even with all the imperfections. So I believe that we almost the Alamo here, surrounded by all these different type of, there are not even laws, you know very well. When the EPA get in, it's not even a law. It's not even Congress.
Right.
It is just some sort of a policy.
It's a policy, and,
exactly.
and that's what's, it's so complicated, and it will come to what I want to talk about, policy and,
Yes.
and who's really running the show. And it's not elected people, it's bureaucrats sitting in offices who I like to now, since the shutdown, I call them non-essential workers because they were the first to go. All the people who really rule us are basically non-essential, unelected
Exactly.
people.
Bureaucrat. Can I ask you something? Are you aware of the keyword that I also would like to share with all the listeners? Is called Agenda 21. Did you ever heard
You know
about
what?
it?
Of course I have. I've heard that, but I have not. I'll be honest with you. It was sort of like most things, I believed there was an element of truth to it, but again, it was something sort of blown out of proportion. But I'm going to say on the record, because of my own now experiences and what I see, I believe it. I believe that there is a movement to herd us into urban populations, to control us more, and you're absolutely right. And it's part of it, as far as I could tell about taking people, we tend to be more independent, free-minding, free market type people. And it used to be in the West, the idea was that you had people and populations, then you had corridors of wildlife. And they want it to be the opposite. They want it to be wilderness, because when it's wilderness, they can control it. We're herded into places where they could sort of keep eyes, and you see it and like most things that the left and socialists do, they do it incrementally.
Yes.
So they give it to you in bits and pieces, and you eat it until before you know it, you look and it's just there, and you can't get out of it. And I believe we're there. I don't even think we're not there. I think we're there, and I see it now every day because it's coming faster and more furiously.
If I can say one thing, yes, the idea of the Agenda 21, first of all, it is not a conspiracy. There is official record.
Right.
And to share just with the listeners, normally the listeners of this radio, they are very well informed about many issues, but just to give you an idea, Agenda 21 is a non-binding, but we go there later, voluntarily, that's to see implemented action plan of the United Nations that pretty much it was signed in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil in 1992 amongst most of the nations of the world. What they're trying to do to simplify that through the local government, state government, all started from, of course, the federal input. They want to control the resources. That means land, access to water, minerals, as you well know. And more important, they try to use the excuse of ecosystem, the green movement, to pretty much deny the basic rights to a human being. So if I had to put a human being as the same right of a rock or a little animal, that I have all respect for animals, but still, I think humans is still a human. I cannot die because a rock must be there. Or that's the bottom line, but that's an excuse because they are not really green at all. These people, they don't care about it. It's just a way to use the useful idiots. They go out there and they think they're doing something nice for nature, but that's not the case. They take it some sort of a Bolshevik plan, like they did in many other countries, to use, even Hitler used to be a green, okay? He was the first one to do the laws that you couldn't smoke, and so many think in Russia. It is just to take your land and resources, keep you away. So much that, especially people that are skeptical, there are books out there, and I want to like to pitch one book that pretty much I read. It's called Behind the Green Mask, United Nations Agenda 21 by Rosa Coyer. And please, it's a great book. By the way, this is cross the party lines. This lady, she's a Democrat.
She's actually a lesbian Democrat.
Wow.
And she was really one of the first real vocal, and she says it. She lays it out, the way it is. And you said about equality and stuff. And what during this whole wolf episode that we're still going through, and we're going to keep going through. We had a public hearing up in Kingman, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife came, and they used the term environmental equality. And I looked it up, and I said to them, I would hope that we humans are at least equal to the wolves? Can I get your promise on that? Because everything is going in that way. We are seen as the intruders and the invaders. And but I just want to get back, because there's going to be, we have just a small amount of time, and there's going to be a little call to action to your listeners.
Yes.
So I want to give you my experience with this wolf thing, which has been incredible.
Go ahead, please.
Again, the deck is stacked. They control the process, and the process is determined by a non-elected bureaucrats, and they give us arbitrary dates to get things done, and we have to play by their rules. So they say it's open and it's public, but it's really not. And we've been fighting, because there is no greater analogy, I think, than saying that they want to put wolves. And now, there's something what we're fighting for now, they're calling it the 10J rule. And there's this area that they will oversee. So, I don't want to get people to think that I'm, sort of this crazy person who say, I don't want wolves, I don't want wolves, because frankly, they're not saying they want to put wolves into Mohave County, because we don't have the
territory,
terrain, or the prey base to sustain that. So what they want to do is, and it's a huge area, they want to say, well, if a wolf comes into this 10J area, then we can come in and we can take care of it. Because right now, if a wolf, because as Supervisor Joy Brotherton so beautifully said, wolves can't read. So if they come into Mohave County, they cross that line. Let's say it comes into your backyard and starts sniffing around your dog. You can't take your gun. If you Luca Zanna, take your gun and you kill that, you're going to go to jail.
And that's exactly what I would like to interact.
And that is your freedom of protecting your property and your home and your livelihood. And what they're saying is, no, you can't do that. Only we can do that. I mean, when you just think of that, when you think of, and we let that happen. We did. We let this all happen. But, we can have a whole other show on that.
No, I appreciate it. First of all, I really appreciate your fervor and genuine enthusiasm, because this is really a matter of preserving what we had.
But I want to tell you what it's even worse than that.
Go ahead.
So because there's so many wolves now. There's gray wolves all over the place. So right now it's an endangered species. They want to delist it, right?
Yes.
The gray wolf, delist it. But then they want to list as an endangered species the Mexican gray wolf as subspecies.
Yes.
But what we're arguing, and when I say we, it's a big organization, which I will hopefully get into a little later, is that there is no such thing as this subspecies. And so we have biologists. But again, it's like you're in a court and you're up against the government, because they have all the resources they can throw at it. And this is what they're saying. And we have a limited amount of resources,
Yes.
And so we're fighting that. But the wolf is already here in Arizona. They're here, and they're doing their damage. And I'm just going to give you, again, what I think. And you're talking about the West and how they're coming after us. And when we had this public hearing, they had this representative from Fish and Wildlife, and we had this call to the public to come and talk about your experience with the wolves. And you had a lot of ranchers, and you had a lot of people who live off the land.
Yes.
And everyone had a story. And so the government says, well, we will reimburse you for, like money's going to take care of it. This is your livelihood. These are your animals. These are people. This is what you do, and this is what you've been done for generations and generations, farms.
Yes.
And so everyone had their thing, and no one gets reimbursed, because you have to prove it. And we were told, and this is something I didn't know, like on a lot of these ranches, you can send your cattle out and you might not see them for a year.
Yes.
Right? So you find it, you go prove that, some wolf did it. It's almost impossible. So this is the part that I thought was the scariest thing of this whole hearing. And I don't even know how many people caught it. He said, this representative from the federal government said that they are exploring, looking into just having a fund where people can go to be reimbursed. So what he's saying is they want to do what the federal government always does. They want to pay people not to produce, like they did for farms.
Yes.
And that is what they're doing for so many. I mean, think about it. With the timber, they keep destroying industries.
The farming.
The farming, the timber.
Yes.
A lot of farms, like in California, with that, they can't get water because of a little gnat or something. And we keep taking it. And when I heard that, that's what they're going to do next. They want ranchers to stop ranching because they want to take that land that they want to designate as wilderness, and they want to push everyone into populated areas.
And exactly, that's why just reading the Agenda 21 plan, for me, and according to many other people, they're also way more expert than I am, this is just part of the plan. Because think about it. I'm a rancher. I live in the middle of nowhere, and I used to have the land that give me the productivity. I can pay the property tax all my life. When I have now no more access to the type of productivity, because if I have a bunch of wolves surrounding my cows or my cattle, I'm gone. I'm out of business, or at least it's going to become a very hostile environment. What you can do then? You have to pack and go.
You have to pack and go. And we had a gentleman who was in Greenlee County, where they put the wolves first.
Yeah.
And he told the story of how little by little the BLM kept taking their land, and the wolves came and killed his cattle. So he moved here.
Yes.
He moved here to get away from it.
Yes.
And now it's coming. It's following him here. And
I would like to say one thing. You say something very important before. I have no problems with wolves or any wild animals. I live in the rural America. I love it. I respect the animals. I would never even kill for fun. I don't even into hunting. I just like to think though that I can defend myself. I can defend my family. I have no kids. I have a cat and some dogs. For me, I'm sorry. I say this publicly, and I know you're trying to look like I am a bad person, but I really mean it. I've been thinking a lot. If my little kitty, Gina, I see a pack of dogs or wolves or Martians, whatever they are, go after her, I'm sorry. I'll do everything I can to defend her. And so for my dogs. I know, but people need to understand, because especially people that they've been writing on the Kingma Daily Miner. And by the way, I have some dirt about that. If you see, there are letters from people from out of state, mostly from Burbank, California, or other Illinois or East Coast. They're trying to tell us how beautiful it is to live among the wolves. That's their choice. They live, first of all, in a city.
of course.
They have no right to tell us how we live our life. But more important, I would like to remember that there is a plan. Unfortunately, it's called lobbies or PR agency, because I saw the same letter in Mohave County with the same name, the same person, also in Navajo County and Apache County, local papers. People don't understand that when you have this Endangered Species Act animal released on your territory, automatically, as you said before, you have no more rights to defend your property or your animal, that for me is my family. And barely, there is the exception, you can defend your life, but you're better off if you shoot a criminal in your home with Arizona law that you have to prove. If you shoot a wolf under the ECA, you are in a bunch of trouble. You're going to go through a lot of investigation. So it is not just having the wolves. I would have no problem if the wolves live around, because I know that if they cross my territory, I will defend my property. It's a natural process of being humans among wild animals. Unfortunately, they're going to put us castrated, and I call them the burrock rats, because these bureaucrats, they are really rats. These people, they have control freaks. They love the power. They are not elected, and they think that they can talk to you down like they used to be during the Middle Ages, lords, and we are the slaves. Go ahead.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And you have these mid-level bureaucrats. We have them here at BLM, and you have ranchers who've lived for generations, who built this county. I know people say, "Oh, they're in the pockets of the ranchers." Well, they're business people. And they are the people who built Mohave County, and why wouldn't I afford them the same rights as as everyone else? I really take exception when people say things like that. Oh, you're in the pocket. They're business people, and we say
and family people. That's their family, their heritage.
And where do you think you get your food?
Exactly.
And it's like everyone's very short-sighted. I can go on and on and on about this, but I want to we talked for about a half hour about the problems, but there is a solution.
Can we hold 1 second? The solution, I would like to have a little break with some music, and then we'll talk about the solution. By the way, Monday it's Veterans Day, right?
Yes, it is.
And I have a special song that I wrote a long time ago, about 2004, I guess, and it's dedicated to all the veterans and to all the military people, that they will uphold the oath to defend the Constitution and the American people against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And unfortunately, in those days, We are more domestic than foreigners, but that's another story. So anyway,
Actually, it's the same story.
yes, the wall.
We are the wall. We are the soldiers of the United States of America. We are the wall that divides freedom from fear. We separate your lives from the tears. We are the wall that permits you to have fun. We stand up strong when everybody runs. We are the wall between things never wished to see. We are the wall, and we are proud to be. We are the wall made of tears, blood, and pain. We are the wall, don't make us die in vain. No, play it. Hey, yeah. We are the wall between things you never wish to see. We are the wall, and we're proud to be. Yeah. We are the wall made of tears.
All right, that was The Wall, music and lyrics by myself. And so I really would like to thank all the veterans, and especially the people that are still serving, that they will refuse to obey any man, but they will stand for our rights, our constitution, and this republic. So thank you very much, guys.
That was a great song.
Thank you. And we have a call. Maybe I think we should get this call, and then we go to this great topic. Let's see if I on here. And then we get the phone one. Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there? I think the caller is gone.
Oh, pull
Okay,
back.
no problem. So let's go back. Supervisor Hildy Angius, please tell us the solution. Tell us what
Okay.
you found out there.
So again, it's only an hour show, and I can sit here for the next 5-10 hours telling you all the injustices, all the devious, horrible plans that the federal government has in store for us. But there are people out there who are working hard, and there seems to be one solution, and they say, I'm part of this organization called the American Lands Council. It's the only solution big enough. And I'm going to just, we passed a resolution to support a transfer of public lands. And I'll get into it in a moment.
Yes.
There's a gentleman named Bill Howell, and he's written several books. One's called Statehood, the Territorial Imperative. And he was one of the founders of this movement. And he wrote me a letter because I ordered his books. I'm just going to read you. And because I am so not an expert in this, and I'm just learning, and to save some time, I'm just going to read some things that cut right to the
Please,
core
go
of what
ahead.
this movement is. All right, Supervisor Angus, I understand that your Mohave County Commission has unanimously supported the transfer of public lands resolution, which is destined to be presented at the upcoming National Association of Counties. It is becoming more generally understood that a government which is rife with corruption, plagued with scandal, and populated with officials who take the fifth, claim executive privilege, or simply outright lie to the American public should not be governing huge swaths of our states. But there is an even more compelling reason why the resolution which you have voted to support is so important. Most scoff when they are told this, but even a cursory review of the founding principles of this country will demonstrate the truth of what I'm about to say. I say with absolute confidence and extensive substantiation with the federal government has no constitutional authority to retain the public lands of these western states in federal ownership, despite the policy announced by Congress in 1976 in the Federal Lands Policy and Management Act. All right, so the movement is to take back the lands that are held in trust
Yes.
by the federal government. Now, they're not owned, and that's a misnomer. You know, if you can do anything today, stop saying federally owned land, because it's not. For a lot of reasons, historical reasons, the federal government holds this land in trust. They were supposed to, the term that was used was dispose of these lands.
Yes.
Okay? When states became states, every state, they have these documents that are called enabling acts, and it's your statement of becoming a state, and it's what makes you a state, and all the things that you're supposed to do and what the federal government's supposed to do, and they're called enabling acts. And in this enabling acts, in every state in the country, the federal government was supposed to dispose in a timely manner these lands that they're held in trust. Now, if you look at this, you'll be seeing this map more and more, and if you want to hold it up,
Yes.
you see, there is sort of a line of demarcation through the middle of our country.
Yes.
And what's the difference?
What is the difference?
What's the difference? On the east, look at that. These red marks, that's federally owned land.
Yes.
In the west, look at that.
It's all red.
It's all red. So you have to say why the difference.
We are
And
surrounded.
Why the difference?
Why?
Why?
You tell me.
That's what you have to ask. You have to ask why.
Why?
You're going to be surprised at the answers that you get. Nobody seems to know the answers why. That's the interesting part. And the answers that you get. So there's a man, he's a state senator out of Utah. His name is Ken Ivory.
Okay.
And he did not start this movement, but he has become a spokesman. And he is a lawyer. He's articulate. He knows the history. He came to Mohave County. And I implore everyone, because if you're listening to this show, you really care.
Yes.
Take 2 hours of your time. I will post it. I will send it to you. Do you have a website?
Yes.
Or
Oh, by the
Facebook
way, let me
page?
say yes.
Right.
Let's
Okay.
let's repeat the website: lovegunsfreedom.com. Please send me the
I'm going to send
link.
you all the links. Please watch this video.
Yes.
After you watch this video, you will have a historic perspective.
Yes.
And you will know how we're going to do this. So in 2012, Utah passed.
One
this
second,
law.
Holly. Supervisor,
Yeah.
stay. I would like to interact with somebody. Let's see, somebody now is calling this phone. Caller, are you there? Okay, the phone was ringing for all this time. Yeah, I would like to get a lot of people. They're trying to call, and I think it's a very great topic. Please continue
Okay.
with this gentleman.
Okay, so he's saying that this movement is saying it is the only solution big enough to take care of all these problems. Now, when we say federal land, we're talking about a lot of different things. Okay, we're talking about parks, we're talking about tribal land, we're talking about, we've conceded, we're not looking to take the parks, we're talking about all that land that the BLM holds, that they lock up, that we can't use, that, and when you talk about the land that the federal government manages,
Yes.
and do you believe that they manage this land well?
No.
We have seen more forest fires ever
Yes.
since they took it over. They ruined the timber industry. They said we couldn't take it. The people who worked the land, who lived on the land for generations, they love the land. But back east, they think we're evil. They
Yes.
think we don't know what we're doing. Everything we do, they can do better. And everything they have touched has turned to crap. We know that. We've seen it in the kind of fires. We've been seeing how hot they're burning. It's because these things aren't being farmed. They're not being culled, and nothing is happening because they're not managing it well.
Question.
So, yeah.
A listener, regular person like myself. First of all, I say we need to learn the truth and find the problem and admit that there is a problem.
Yeah.
That's the first process
Right.
to try to improve and get something back the way it's supposed to be. After we learn and after we understand the big plan, what would you suggest to a regular Mohave County resident that really would like to help and do their part to try to help you in this challenge? Because you're pretty much, I know the other supervisor, most of them, they're all on the same page.
We're all on the same page.
And that's great. I really like that. But also I think you need the support also of the people
Okay.
behind you. What they can do, what can we do?
All right. I just want to sort of explain this a little more, and I'm going to
Yes.
tell everybody what
Yes.
they can do. This Ken Ivory, he was the author of the legislation known as House Bill 148, the Transfer of Public Lands Act from Utah. It was signed into law by the governor of Utah, Gary Herbert, in March.
Okay.
Praised by supporters and blasted by opponents, the legislation calls for the federal government to hand over management of Utah's public lands to the state by 2014.
Wow.
This is what Arizona has to do.
Okay.
All right. So they've tried before. Arizona legislature, to its credit, has tried doing things like this. Did you know there was a proposition in their last election in 2012 for this?
Yes.
It just was not sold right. I didn't even know.
Yes.
I mean, I follow this stuff. I didn't even realize that was what that proposition. It's never been explained in a way that you or I or anyone out there listening
can understand.
But we've got all of this together.
Yes.
So, but the most important thing is that we have the state legislators, elected officials, different elected jurisdictional bodies on board, and then we go as an entire elected, not unelected, but elected body, as representatives of the people. I, as a supervisor, I am responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Mohave County.
Yes.
And we are being destroyed.
Yes.
We are. It is a health, it is a safety issue, everything that they're doing. So we want to move ahead and we want to enact legislation here in Arizona. And they're doing it in Nevada. And they're doing it in Idaho. You're finding the representatives from the smaller jurisdictions,
Question.
the counties.
Did you already talk to our state representative for our
Yes.
district?
Oh yeah, they're on board.
Great.
I'm actually going to Phoenix this coming Thursday.
Okay.
And Tom Horn, who, whatever you think about him, right or wrong, he has been, it is unqualified. He has stood up to our federal government
Yes.
on a number of different issues, and we are going to declare our sovereignty on Thursday of all different elected officials, and then we can go forward. What your listeners can do, what people can do. We're coming into a big election cycle.
Yes.
This is my litmus test. I was talking to Ken Bennett the other day, and he said, "Oh, Hildy, you think you can help me out in Mohave County?" And I said, "Well, things have changed a little. I have a new litmus test. My big issues now are different than they were because of what I've seen as an elected official. How do you stand on the transfer of public lands?"
What did he say?
He said, "Of course, he was all blustery. He said, if I was governor during the government shutdown, I would have immediately taken all the parks and said they are Arizona lands. I would have, kept it open. But more than that, we have to make sure they do it. There should be, all the other little issues. They will not matter."
1 second only.
Yeah.
Caller, are you there?
Why are we having caller? Probably
We
sure.
have a lot of callers, but every time I push the button, they're already gone. Okay.
That's too bad. Keep calling back.
Keep calling back.
Because like I said, I'm new at this. I hope I'm explaining this well enough. There's so much, and I need people. This Ken Ivory, what he says is, we need men who educated and with courage.
Yes.
And it only takes, because it's been done before. Do you know in 2009, Hawaii demanded their public lands back, and they got it.
Wow, I didn't know about that. That's
Yes.
interesting.
All the history, it's been done before. And when you hear the history about these enabling acts, the wording is the same. I just want to read something really fast. As an example of the inequality between the states when applied to the public land, Ivory drew a comparison between Utah, remember, he's from Utah.
Yes, from Utah.
And North Dakota, calling it the tale of two states. North Dakota, Ivory said, had a grand total of 3% public land. Utah's public lands currently make up 65% of the state. North Dakota has 20,000 jobs looking for people to fill them, and said education spending in the state was above average thanks to revenues collected from the use of lands managed by the state. Now you talk about education. You go back to this map, and it mirrors
Yes.
the lowest the most poorly educated, the lowest scores is all in the West. If you don't have the base for the tax base, you're not going to have the money for education.
Yes. And also another thing, speaking about education, even it's not really connected, but if we don't know our rights, we have no rights. So what you're saying, all this knowledge, the process, how to get our land back, it's like something that it's vital. This information, it's vital because there is a system. As you said, this trust of federal land, they don't really own it.
Right.
So we can have a process through our state legislators to get it back. And another thing also, since our listeners, they're mostly from Mohave County, but also we have listeners all over Arizona. So pretty much people that should start to get involved, understand the issue, contact the state representative, and if somebody was to contact you and would like to help you, is there any way? Is there a website that you have?
Oh, well, yes. Go to, and okay, I'll send you all these links.
Yes.
Before you do anything, educate yourself. Go to AmericanLandsCouncil.org.
Okay.
And I'll post this on my Facebook page, all of these things we talked about today. The link to the presentation.
Caller, are you there? Always late. I'm terrible with these callers
Well,
part.
I don't know.
You know,
Sure that it's
I
not
always too late.
disconnecting?
Must be, yeah, it's my fault.
Keep calling. He goes on. In North Dakotans, you know, you've all been listening, knowing what's going on in North Dakota. There is a boom in North Dakota. They have their minerals, the mining. You know, I was up in Idaho on vacation a couple of months ago. Beautiful. I fell in love with Idaho. It is so sad. The mine, you know, all these closed mines. We went. I was lucky enough. I have a friend who grew up there, and he knows all the people from the mines. And you know what the government's doing to them, regulating them to death. This one guy, the only way to keep the mine open is $200 million of retrofitting. And you know, I'm not saying some of it didn't have, but they're just regulated to death.
Yes. And that's the part of the plan, because Agenda 21, pretty much their plan is to regulate and control the resources. That means not just your state land, but mineral rights, water rights, and many other things. I think there is a lot of information there, and I really think, you know, this is just scratching the surface. Because
There's so much, and I'm trying to put it all
and I would
in
like
my
to, you
head
know,
because it's all...
Can-
I just want to say what he wants you to do.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to. At the conclusion of his presentation, Ivory asked the audience to do the following, and this is what I'm asking
Yes.
everyone to do: study the subject of public lands and state sovereignty. Share with your family, friends, and others what you've learned.
Okay.
Ask elected representatives at all levels of government. I'm talking all levels. We're talking, because this will affect everyone. We're talking boards of education, fire districts. If they understand where the line stands between the states and the federal government. I don't think most of our elected people really understand that. Commit to cultivate a national nonpartisan dialogue regarding where the line stands between state and federal jurisdiction. And this is a bipartisan issue. You know, after this, I had leaders of the Democrat Party here, who I know and like very well.
Yes.
We disagree on some
Economic,
very major
yes.
things, but when it comes to our destiny, we're talking about
Exactly.
where we're going to be as a country, as a states, as you know, we could take control of our destiny. I think a lot of people right now feel powerless
Yes.
by a federal government who stomps on us at every turn. And I was feeling that as an elected official. You know, when I took over, you find that every jurisdiction is kind of afraid of the next one. Like the cities were afraid of the county was afraid of the state was, and everyone's afraid of the federal government. But it was getting to a point where nobody was fighting back, because we have learned the hard way that you can't. The deck is stacked. But if we do this, I believe personally, it is our last chance.
Yes.
It is our last hope to have the community that we want. I would love to break off. If we could just secede, I would be happy with that. But if we do it this way, because it is what was supposed to happen. It's not like we're making this up. We're not, and I brought you to a legal opinion, which I gave you,
Yes.
which explains all of it. The concept from the Federalist Society and the Chapman Law School, they dissected it. The constitutionality of it, and they say that the law, the Constitution, is on the side of the states, and we have to believe that, and we have to go for
To
it.
interact 1 second, the last time I checked also, the states created the federal government.
Yeah.
I mean, now it seems like the federal government is the holy spirit that pretty much tell us that we can exist. We created this monster
Exactly.
that unfortunately was like a little baby, supposed to do just design functions according to the constitutions, and now pretty much decides everything about our life. Question, and I know there is so much, but I would like to touch a couple extra topics, so at least connected to the rights, because now we were talking about federal intrusion in our state rights. Even the time is left is not much, but I would like to speak a little bit about our county towards the property rights. And there are so many other topics. I would like just to focus on one. First of all, do you believe that the function of government, I mean, in your opinion, do you believe the government can force you to buy a product or a service against your will? What is your position about that?
Of course not.
Okay, great. We'll believe the same thing. So pretty much we don't believe the government can force us to buy like a product like the healthcare, right?
Right.
From that concept, if the government is trying to force me to buy a product or a service that I don't need, like the healthcare, I always try to think, by logic, why do I need me as a landowner or homeowner in Mohave County, I have to pay for a school district when I don't have any kids, or maybe I would give them homeschooling to the children. It's not just an answer that you need to give me now, but just for logic. I'm just trying to open minds to think, let's think 1 second. We never really had always this. Now we have force in many aspects of our life, not just on federal level, and this is nothing with you. You just came out right now, and this went up in the last 60 years at least. And we see when our property rights, we have already the same type of forcing on us. We are forced to buy for a product. I am forced to pay a lot of money, like you do, on the school district, why maybe as a choice I would never send my kid to a public school. And that's something made me think, if I want to be honest and fair, like I disagree with the government, federal government forced me on this public health care, at the same time I'm forcing already to pay for a school system.
Well, I've heard that argument before, and if you look at what the federal government really is responsible for, it's the safety, because I get this argument all the time. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in that. Why should my tax dollars go to the military? There are some basic functions that the government is responsible for, and that is education and defending the citizens, and that. But I agree with you on some certain level, but they have taken that and they have gone overboard.
Yes, and that's just a little aspect. Of course, we can go. I give you another concept. This is my tea, or even better, this is your water. Can I get some? I'm asking your permission because this is your water. The definition of property means that your freedom. This is yours.
Right.
If I read as a residential person that live in a household, no access to public, no commercial. Let's say tomorrow I want to do, and I just found out that the other day, I would like to put, for example, solar panels.
Right.
Okay? I want to use the energy from the sun to try to have some benefit for my own household. If this is really my house, when I have no liability towards the public, not like a restaurant, why should I go to ask for a permit to somebody that is a bureaucrat anyway, or at least part of this government, and I need to ask the permission, first of all, can I? And then I need to pay a fee to pay for their service. This is something that, this is not something it's your fault. This is just something that we're trying to argue, to have to debate, at least to start to put some seeds in our brain to think, hey, wait a second, the sun, the power of the sun, why should I ask to the government? I don't care which government, state, federal, county, first their permission, and then to pay for a fee. I tell you honestly, I did not put my solar system where I live in Golden Valley when I had a local company from Kingman. They asked me, listen, this is the fee, and this is for your permit. Permit for what? The county. What is it doing, the county, for me? I pay you, you're doing the job. They want a permit. And I say, guess what? I'm not going to put a solar.
Right.
I refuse that.
Yeah, well, I think it probably originally, and if you look, when permitting or asking the government had to do with, making sure things were built safely and, wouldn't intrude on the rest of the community. But of course, like everything, it has got completely out of control. And I just want everyone to know that when Luca asked me that, I scratched my head too, and I wrote to our public works. I said, why do we charge people to access the sun?
Can I say a prayer? This is a prayer because, now you have delegated power from us, at least to start to learn this process. First of all, it would be nice that we are not forced anymore, but we have the choice. Like, I would like to choose the government insurance or I want to get my insurance. If I want tomorrow for resale value, for safety, just because I like to show it to when I eventually sell my home, yes, I had the home inspector from the county, but I don't need to be penalized or be fearful because, as I said, the rights, our rights, we have rights till we don't infringe on other people's rights. So I would never, since a situation like structural, like say solar panel, especially where we live in a rural Mohave County, it's not like we live in New York on top of each other.
Right.
I would understand that, something can fall on somebody else's head. There is no reason for safety. I am liable for myself. I'm responsible for myself. And I don't need the county to tell me what is safe.
Luca, I agree with you, and probably everyone who's listening agrees with you. We just have a few minutes. Listen, I'll leave you with this, and it's going to give us some hope because we did talk about it during the campaign. At our next board meeting, I don't know if you know this, but there's nowhere that if you wanted to find this out, or you want to know what the code was or whatever for solar panels, there's nowhere you can go. There's no website. We are probably the only jurisdiction around here that doesn't have our codes and our ordinances, our regulations codified. I never heard that word until I came up, meaning that it's all in order. You can search it, and we're going to do that. And it's twofold. It's going to help people find out what you want, but it's also going to give us, and I promised when I was running, I was going to go through these ordinances and regulations and, things like this and get rid of, and I'm going to have everyone explain to me. You're going to have to explain it like you do. Why do we charge for the sun? If it doesn't make sense to me, if it doesn't make sense to Supervisor Brotherton, we're going to get rid of it. We're going to go through these ordinances and these regulations because they have become, on one hand, we say we want all of this economic development. On the other hand, businesses come. And I'll just real fast. A friend called me. He built a new business. And first year open, he opened up his property tax bill, $17,000.
My God.
$17,000. And I went and I looked at it, and 60% is the school district and the fire district, and we won't even go into that. The fire district and the school districts, and I implore, I use that word again, people to go to their fire district boards, because you have the power. People have forgotten that they run these things, and a lot of these people who run for these boards, they're well intentioned, but they don't really know what their role is.
Supervisor Angius, you think our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, would have put up with a permit?
And on that note, but please go to these websites, learn about it, and I would love to come on and talk again, and maybe we'll have some more callers and some more questions.
The time is over, but I have a final message. Final message of the day. For all the collectivist, progressive, leftist, statist, phony Republicans, neocons, big government horseshippers, socialist, fascist, communist of America, please, we don't need to fight anymore. We don't need to debate that we agree to disagree on how you want to suck the blood out of our bodies. Guess what? We don't need you, but you need us.